So, how to master your inner voice. Some people don't have an inner voice, but the majority of people do. Some people process things in images, feelings. They don't really tend to speak to themselves in their head, but the majority of people have some kind of inner voice, and this video is going to show you how to master it, okay? If you're watching this, you've clicked a video because the title has said something about an inner voice, and you probably have it based on the fact that you're watching this video. And a lot of my clients, in fact, every single one of my clients that I've worked with have always had an inner voice. And a lot of the time, it's the thing that sabotages them. It's the thing that comes in and convinces them to avoid something or do something later on in the week. Again, delay, procrastinate, or do something that's sabotaging. You should do this thing right now. Might be a bad habit, might be a sabotaging behavior that's not going to serve you and move you forward. And it's been a part of my job as a coach to help my clients master this inner voice. And honestly, the work that I've done around this and the kind of information I'm going to give you today has given my clients the awareness and put them in a position of power to take control of that inner voice and not be controlled by it. Understand why that voice is appearing in their mind, and also understanding that they do not need to be controlled by that, and therefore they've gained more control over their behavior. How you behave is going to dictate the outcomes in your life. So ultimately, by you mastering your inner voice, you put yourself in a position to start mastering the outcomes in your life in a very direct, in some cases, but indirect way most of the time. But very important information. I appreciate your time and attention watching this, so let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to open you up to, right, when it comes to mastering this voice in your head, because you've got it, you wouldn't still be watching this if you were like, Kyle, I've not got an inner voice, what the fuck am I going to continue watching this for? You do have one, and that's why you're continuing to watch this. Right, and the first thing that I want to speak to you about, and the kind of first concept I want to reinforce, is this. And it's going to be very important for you to make this distinction, because a lot of people don't have this distinction in their head. And a lot of people aren't really aware of this being the thing, right? You are not the voice. Right, Kale, so if I'm not the voice, if I've got voices in my head that tell me good things sometimes, but a lot of the time they tell you bad things, they try and hold you back, they get you to procrastinate, they essentially tell you to do something that's maybe not good for you, right? If you're not the voice, what are you? Well, in fact, you're not the voice, you are the observer of that voice. Observer of the voice. You're the observer, right? So you're not your thoughts in your head, you're not the voice in your head, you're actually the observer. You are the part of you that can observe that voice and not be attached to it instantly. But a lot of the time, that voice will come in and people will instantly identify with that voice. But that thought alone right now, although it is actually just another thought, that you are the observer, might allow you to start to detach from that voice in your head. So what will happen a lot of the time is, imagine you're doing something new, for example, or you're pushing to this next level in your business. A lot of my clients are doing that. They'll have voices in their head, or a voice in their head, that will say, you probably shouldn't do that, or this might go wrong. My clients are now aware that that's not them. That they do not need to feel anxiety, they do not need to feel stress or resistance when that voice comes in, because they now understand that they are the observer. And this is going to be one of the most important things to reinforce before we go into anything else about this video. Because if you don't think you're the observer, if you think you're these voices and you identify with them straight away, it won't even make sense what I'm talking about. So you're not your thoughts, you're the awareness of them. You're not the voice in your head, you're the observer, right? And that puts you in the observer seat. That puts you in a position where you're not necessarily completely controlled, right? So let's speak about the different voices in your head. And I don't know how long this video is going to be. When I'm making these YouTube videos, it kind of is a freestyle based on previous calls that I've done with my clients, the topics that I'm digging into. It's not necessarily something that's completely planned out. So this video might be 15 minutes. This video might be half an hour. Let's see how long I speak for. But it's not going to waste your time. It's going to give you valuable information. It's going to make sure that you have knowledge to apply to your life after watching this video. I don't want to waste any of your time, right? So let's think about the first voice, right? So we'll just call it voice number one, right? And I want you to think about this voice, or label the voice as the ego, right? And this is the kind of survival instinct, this part of you right, that will come in, and the majority of the time, if not all the time, it will come in to keep you safe, right? Keeping you safe, it wants you to be comfortable. So when I'm speaking about these different voices, I want you to, as you're watching this video, to make it useful and powerful for yourself, I want you to reflect. I want you to think about a time where you tried to push the business to the next level, start the business, try something, maybe you got a job promotion, maybe you tried something new. Think about, at that point when you done that, how you felt. Did you have a voice in your head that came in and said, you probably shouldn't do that? Oh, that's risky, what if this doesn't work? If you've had that, that was your ego coming in, okay? Your ego was coming in to try and keep you safe, right? This ego is motivated to keep you comfortable and to keep you in a place that feels familiar and feels like you know it, right? And this is where a lot of the time, if you're trying to move into a next phase of your life, if you're trying to become someone different, because that is required in order for you to achieve big things in life, you need to become this new version of yourself. Ego doesn't like it, because guess what? That thing that you're going to go and do, that's a risk, and it's not safe. It's not necessarily comfortable. So just think right now, as I'm telling you this, when was a time that you tried to do something new, push to the next level, and that ego came in? Reflect. As I'm saying this right now, reflect, right? So again, what it's going to do is, it's going to get you to avoid things that are going to feel painful, right? Right? So something that, again, something that's going to be seen as pain, seen as uncomfortable, it's going to get you to avoid it. It's going to cause this resistance. It's going to, again, might come in and say to you, for me, Kyle, you shouldn't do that. This might go wrong if you try and do this thing. And when that comes in, I now know, because I'm the observer, that's just my ego coming in. So me, in the position that I'm currently in, I'm not controlled by that. I don't identify with it. But what will happen is, if that voice comes in and you're not aware of it, if you're not the observer, you will listen to that voice. Guess what it's going to do? It's going to make you feel a certain way, which will dictate how you then behave. We're going to go into this. We're going to allow you to understand how the thought and how that voice coming in creates a reaction. We're going to allow you to understand how the awareness you're getting from this video will cause you, put you in a position to not listen to it and take control, right? So again, things that this ego is going to say. It's going to say things like just rest, right? Like, for example, like don't go too hard. Okay? These kind of things. So as I'm saying this, identify in your head, when is this showing up in your life? When is this taking control of the things that you're doing? When is this stopping you go to the next level? When is this voice coming in and sabotaging the results that you're getting? Ask yourself the question, okay? And as I'm wiping this off, ask yourself the question of, again, where is this holding me back? Why does this hold me back in my life? What is it I'm trying to do right now that this voice comes in and it's very loud? And you're going to start to see that anything, or any time this voice comes in, it's going to be when you're trying to do something new, when you're trying to get to the next level, okay? So number two, voice number two, is going to be the old self, right? And this one here is very important, and it comes in quite a lot, and it's actually come in quite a lot for me, for myself, right? And what this voice is going to do is going to remind you, okay, of who you used to be. Who you, this is important, used to be. It's going to remind you of who you used to be, okay? Used to be. So again, you're trying to do something new in life, you're trying to push to the next level, you're going to, this voice is going to tell you stories, and it will say things like, but remember when X, Y, Z. So it'll say things like, remember when this didn't happen before. So remember you've tried this before, right? Remember remember who you are. You've tried this and it didn't work. Or remember that you're not the kind of person that can do that. That's the kind of things that it's going to come in and say. And honestly, this is so powerful for you to start to understand and realize, because any time that you try something new, any time that you're going to try and be a version of yourself, it could be as simple as changing how you dress and changing how you style your hair. It can be as simple as that. And there'll be a part of you, a voice that comes in that says, you've never had your hair like that. Remember you used to have your hair like this? Hold you to your old self, right? And it's going to tell you stories about your old self. It's going to tell you stories of the past. It's going to bring up who you used to be. And it's going to try and take you away and distract you from who you're trying to become. And if you can detach from this, if you can understand, right, cool, that's just my old self coming in. So for example, if you've got a bad habit, imagine someone that's trying to get leaner. They're trying to get leaner, get more ripped, and they've got a bad habit of snacking at nighttime, right? Or on the way home from work. Instead of going home to the house and eating something nice and clean out their fridge, they may have a habit of going into McDonald's or a takeaway, a fast food place, and that's a pattern of their old self. And a part of their mind, which we're going to speak about in a minute, says, you should go home and eat that nice meal. You know what you want to do. Like you've got a good goal in place. You're moving towards it. You're doing well. But then this old self comes in and goes, no, but remember, you love a McDonald's. You love a cheeseburger. You love doing that thing that's not good. And if that person wasn't aware that was the old self coming in, if they weren't detached, if they weren't the observer, guess what would happen? They would listen to that voice. They would then react and feel like they are that voice. They would feel emotional about that thought that's came in. And that would drive the action to align with that voice that came in. But you get to interrupt that pattern of reacting to the voice, listening to the voice, with the awareness you're getting on this video, that you're the observer, you're not the voice. You don't need to identify with this, okay? And again, this is why a lot of the time people will, again, they'll just be controlled. So another thing that it's going to do is, right, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable with change, right? And this is quite similar to the ego. Like, it doesn't like change, it doesn't like discomfort, but it's going to make you feel uncomfortable with change, right? And this is important here, even if it's good for you. Sorry, I'm having a fucking stroke, right? Bear with me. So even if it's good for you, right? This voice is going to come in and try and sabotage that thing that you know is good for you. There's a part of your mind that we're going to speak about in a minute, that voice in your head that knows it's good, but this is going to try and make you feel uncomfortable about it, despite it being good for you. So this is why it's really important to start becoming aware of these voices in your head, because you know going to the next level in your business is good for you. You're going to make more money, right? You know that getting fitter, leaner, sticking to a better diet, being more disciplined, you know that's good for you. But if this voice is coming in consistently and you're not aware and you're not the observer, it's going to consistently come in and throw you off, right? Because if you keep identifying with the voice that tells you that this thing isn't comfortable, like you shouldn't change, you should stay the same. Oh, but remember you used to be this person. Oh, but remember you like doing this thing, right? And you keep listening to it, you keep falling into the pattern of whatever this tells you, you're never going to be in control. And you're always going to be controlled. But if you can become the observer, if you can step outside of this, and as I'm talking in this video, you can reflect, you can ask yourself, right, cool, when is this happening to me? You can start to take this observer seat and be in control. And honestly, if you are someone that is wanting to go to that next level, you know that things like this are holding you back, the inner voice, I go deeper with my clients. I do weekly calls with my mastery clients that allow us to really dig into this, really notice the patterns, but not only just notice them and become aware of them, I hold them accountable to make the change, right? I allow them to set their life up in a way, engineer their environment that will change the way they behave. And if you can change the way you behave through practical things that you apply, not just becoming aware, you will change the outcomes of your life and ultimately take control. And that is the work that I do with my clients. So if you're someone that wants to go to the next level, if you feel that you are being held back by things like this, inner voices, you keep controlling, you're being controlled by this inner voice, click the first link in the bio and book a little call in. You're not going to lose anything from us having a chat, creating more clarity around where you're at right now, where you want to go, and potentially us locking in, because that is the best case scenario. So let's continue. So the third voice here, right? The third voice I want to speak about here is the third voice that I've kind of indirectly been, would you say, like referring to, right? This voice here has got to be the most important voice in your head, because it's the one that is always going to help you as long as you listen to it, right? So this is the most important voice inside your head as long as you listen to it, okay? So this here, let's put it into a different colour. Did I put red? Probably is a bit contradicting to put red. Let's put a nice pink colour, right? So number 3, voice in your head. Right, let's just say it's the higher self. Right? Again, we could say like, say true self. Okay, it could be ideal self, right? It could be future self, whatever label you want to put on it. But this is a version of you, right, that always knows what you should do, okay? So, you have results that you want in your life. And it might not be super clear, by the way. This actually might be part of your problem as well, that your vision for the future might not be crystal clear. And that's why the voices can throw you off, because you're not super connected to your future and how things look in the future, right? But this voice, right, it will always know what to do, right, to align with your vision. It will always know what to do, right? So when people say, and you, again, the voice in your head that will try and confuse you, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know what I should do here, I don't know what action I should take, you always know what to do. There's always a voice that knows what you should do to align with your vision. And this is why when I work with clients, as I said, I'm working with guys that are already successful, guys that are either starting or scaling a business or have scaled a business. And I've got my client Russell, for example, he's got over 100 staff, running a company, he's got 5 partners, he's doing really well, right? But he still has these voices in his head that will sabotage him, or were sabotaging him, not anymore, that were telling him to do the bad habits, right? Get the, like, essentially stick to the vices that he had in his life, right? But as soon as he became aware, right, and there was challenge from me, there was external question from me, he started to become aware and become the observer of those negative voices, the old self, the ego, and he started to become aware of that voice that always knew what he should have done. And he, again, the kind of person that Russell is, the kind of person that, for example, my client Adam, my client Kieran, my client Jay, my client Daniel, all of these people have one thing in common. They're self-aware. They know what they should do, right? But they're just not doing it. And a lot of the time, the reason why they don't do the thing is because that other voice, that ego, the old self, it comes in, and before they know it, they've listened to it, before they know it, they've got emotional, before they know it, they've taken action, right? And again, we're going to dig into how you can create this awareness and use what we're talking about to stop that reaction, but we'll do that a little bit later in the video, right? Which isn't going to be too long, right? But this voice, for example, in Russell's head, he always knew what he should have done, but he wasn't listening to that voice because the other voices were louder. And the reason why the other voices were louder is because he kept feeding those other voices. He kept listening to them. He gave them power. And this is the analogy. It's almost like imagine this is like a physical thing, a physical being, which is not. It's obviously a thought in your head. But you say, right, listen, jump over into the driver's seat. Every single time you listen to that voice that doesn't tell you to do the right thing, tells you to stay comfortable, or tells you to avoid something, procrastinate, sabotage, whatever it is, you're essentially telling them, right, jump over into the driver's seat. You're giving them the position of the driver's seat. And then you wonder why at the end of the week you're not getting things done. Because that voice in your head, you're giving it power. That's dictating your behavior. That's dictating your outcomes. That's why you're frustrated. That's why you're not getting the results, right? But as soon as you become the observer, you'll be like, fuck, right, okay, let's call the voice, he's over there and he's trying to speak to me. He's trying to get in. He's trying to get power. I'm going to tell him to shut his mouth. Fuck off, inner voice. I'm going to listen to the higher self because I know what I should do to align with my vision. But you'll get full of your own shit. You'll convince yourself, or that voice will convince yourself that you don't know what you should do, and that's why you keep falling off. So again, as I'm talking, I want you to reflect and I want you to think, right? When is this happening in my life? When is this showing up? When? When are you falling off? Is it on a Monday? Is it on a Sunday night before the week starts? Is it during the week when you're really busy and you've got a lot of things to do? When is this showing up in your life? When are these voices taking control and sabotaging you? The first part about you taking control is creating the awareness. I'm going to show you a visual of how that awareness can be powerful. But right now on this video, this might be the first time that you've ever thought in your mind, fuck, I have voices that are controlling me right now. That might be the old self that's coming in. That might be the higher self that's actually telling me I should do the right thing. And I don't listen to that enough. This is powerful, okay? Amazing. Really, really good, okay? So again, this voice is always going to say, this is what I should do. This is what I should do. It's always going to say that. It's always going to give you this. This is what I should do. That voice is always going to know what you should do. You have all the answers. This is something that I want to write in big, right? You have the answers all the time. But you convince yourself, oh, I don't know what I should do. I don't know what's best for me. Right? I'm lost. All these things that my clients will say. Again, even the guys that are successful smashing it, they'll still say things like, I don't know. And I'll say, right, you do know. Don't say that. Let's find out what it is. And that external question that I give them, it allows them to ask themselves better internal questions. Something that my mentor said, the main thing that separates people that are super successful and people that are not is the ability to ask better internal questions. Right? A lot of these voices in your head, the two voices, the ego, the old self, they're running about your head, they're in control because no one is externally questioning you. And again, another soft CTA. There's a link in my bio. If you click that link, we can book a call and speak about this because this might be the catalyst for you going to that next level, right? Because it is for all my other clients that I work with. And if these voices are controlling you, you do have an inner voice that is controlling you and sabotaging you, the first step towards you fixing that is getting someone like me to externally question you so you can become aware and find the right answers that you sometimes tell yourself you don't have, but also to become aware of these things that are sabotaging you and get rid of them in your life, okay? So you have all the answers. This is what you should do. This is the kind of thing that this voice will say. And it always knows what you should do to align with the vision that you've got, right? There's a deep part of you that knows that you should do the right thing all of the time. There's a voice in your head that says, right, cool, this is the right thing to do all the time. Right? That's the higher self. That's the true self. And that is the version of you that you should always listen to. That is the voice in your head that you should always listen to, but sometimes you don't, right? So there's a fourth kind of voice in your head, or fourth perspective that I kind of want you to think about, right? And that fourth perspective, right, is the observer. We're just going to keep it pink, right? And that is the observer. And I don't want you to confuse yourself here, right? That is the observer. And I want you to think, again, this is the... Right, I want you to think about this is the version of you. This is almost like, again, if you've heard of this term before, this is consciousness. This is your ability to see and imagine and observe things, right, inside your own mind. I want you to do this little exercise quickly right now. I want you to right now close your eyes. Ideally, close your eyes. If you don't close your eyes, just do it, right? Just close your eyes and do it. And I want you to imagine a box in your head. I want you to imagine a box in your head. And I want you to think about what that, see it in your head, and I want you to think about what the box looks like right now. Create this box inside your head, right? What is the box made of? Is it wood? Is it plastic? Is it just a black box? Is it glass? What is the box made of? Can you see the box? Can you see the material of it right now in your mind? What angle can you see the box from? Is it slightly from the side? Is it face on? Are you looking down at it? Are you looking up at it? What angle can you see the box from? Where is the box? Can you see it? Is it sitting outside? Is it in a blank space? Picture this box inside your head. That's what I want you to do right now, is picture the box inside your head, right? So, you're not going to be able to answer this because you're watching a fucking YouTube video, right? But where is the box? Comment below, where do you think the box is? Again, my clients would say the answers they were given in the call when I'd done something similar was in my mind, in my imagination. 100%. How can you see that box though? What part of you can see the box? The observer. That's the part of you that just seen that box there, right? And guess what? You didn't judge the box. You didn't attach yourself. You're not the box. You didn't feel like, oh, I'm the box and that box is me. And you weren't confusing the box with you, and you weren't attaching it to yourself, right? Okay? So, this part of you observes. It doesn't judge. Let's pretend I didn't do that there, right? Doesn't judge. Right? This is the part of you that can also observe those three other voices in your head. You do not need to judge them, attach yourself to them. A lot of people do though. As I said, we're going to show you a little visual to show you what happens. But that ego comes in. Oh, I feel anxious. I feel like I don't want to move forward. They're not observing that thought that comes in, that voice that comes in. they're completely judging it, they're identifying with it, and they're attaching themselves to it, they're feeling a certain way, and then acting based on that voice that comes in. If you didn't judge the box that came in there, you've just done that there. So the same way that you can see the box, and this box is something that's almost separate to you from that observer's perspective, is the same way that these voices in your head can also be separate to you from that observer's perspective. And once you gain the awareness and the ability to see things from this position, you're no longer going to be a victim of these voices. You're going to truly become the observer. So going back to the first concept that I reinforced inside of this video, right? You're not your thoughts, you're the observer. You're not the voices, you're the observer. That's just giving you a quick example of how you can become the observer. You obviously seen a box, but it's the same way that you can see your voices, right? It doesn't judge, it doesn't react. Again, it just observes. So again, I want to reinforce this to you. I want you to understand that you're always in a position to be the observer, right? You're always in control of that voice coming in and you not reacting to it, you not responding to it. You're always in this position to be the observer. You might not have felt this up until this point. You might not have even known that this was a part of your mind or a part of you that you can see things from. But this is why this video will hopefully give you value and wisdom and powerful knowledge and awareness for you to then take away, right? So again, really good. This is really, really good. And I want you to reinforce this, right? So from this place, right, you choose who to be. So from this observer seat, you actually get, in this perspective of the observer, right, you can choose who to be. So you, like, going up to do public speaking, right? You might get a voice in your head that goes, fuck, what if I fuck up? Like, what if I don't do well here? What if something goes wrong? You're going to get that voice in your head, right? But there'll be another part of you that says, you've got this. You know what you're talking about. You're going to fucking smash it. Everything's going to go really well. From this observer's seat, from this perspective, from this part of your mind, this voice here, you can actually think to yourself, okay, right, what am I going to take seriously? Now I'm going to reinforce a little point in a minute. What am I going to take seriously? I'm going to take that there seriously? No. I'm going to take the point that I'm going to do well seriously? Yes. And you get to choose who you be. And based on what voice you listen to will dictate how you act and how you behave. If you listen to, oh my god, things are going to go fucking wrong, and you start to react to that, you're going to go up onto the stage and bottle it and shit your pants and not do well. If you listen to the voice in your head that is your higher self, you know what you're doing, you know how to speak, you know what that thing there, if you choose that, you're going to then act very, very differently to the guy that is listening to the ego or listening to the old self. And I wanted to give you this perspective because I was watching a little podcast by Chase Hughes, really, really good guy, fucking top of the level, right? And he was speaking about the difference between someone that is really experienced with public speaking and someone that's not, right? There's actually not much difference other than this one thing, right? Both of those people have the same voices. This is such a powerful reinforcement for what we're talking about, right? This observer's seat, this observer's perspective, I keep saying observer's seat because it's a little analogy that I use, right? Sitting in the observer's seat, being able to see things, right? Two people go up onto a stage to do public speaking. One person has done it 1,000 times, the other person it's his first time ever. Both of those people have the ego coming in. Both of those people have the old self coming in, right? They both have the same voices in their head, given the fact they are people with voices in their head, because not every single person has a voice, right? But I'm speaking to you, the people that have this, right? The one difference between the person that has done it 1,000 times and the person that hasn't done it at all, really, and has done it for their first time, is taking that voice seriously. One person takes the negative ego, old self very seriously, gets anxious, feels shit about it. The other guy that's done it 1,000 times knows not to listen to that voice. From the observer point, he just sees that as a thing that's there and doesn't choose to be that voice. He doesn't choose to identify or attach himself to that voice. And that's the difference. The ability to choose. The ability to not take that voice seriously. It's the only difference. And what's the difference in terms of behaviour? Very confident, the guy that chooses not to listen to that, not to take it seriously, very confident, nails the talk. The other guy, sweaty palms, borderline shits his pants, doesn't present himself well, doesn't do what he should, probably waffles a bit of shite, doesn't execute the talk very well. And the only difference was he chose and didn't have the choice because he was consumed and controlled, and the other guy did. And this is something as well that you're going to have to practice, right? You don't go to the gym for the first time ever, and you don't build a strong chest the first time you've ever been to a gym. You need to go to the gym for a while, right? Repetition is a big part of this. So if you want to think about, we'll write this on the board. But repetition is a big part of this, right? Because repetition, I don't even need to write it on the board, but while I'm writing it off, I'll speak to you about it. Repetition is a big part of this, and it's going to build the strength up and the mental resilience and the ability to do this thing. Like, this is a skill. Like, being able to, we talk about like self-mastery and being able to master your mind, and this is everything that I teach. It's not something that someone can't go from absolutely fucked to like self-mastery within a day. It's not going to work. Sorry. There's repetition involved, right? There's a repeated process of doing it, right? Getting better at it, getting better at observing the voice and not reacting, okay? So if you try this stuff that I'm speaking about, you try to be the observer, you try to notice things and you still react, it's very normal to contradict yourself as a human. Like, it's going to happen, you're not a fucking robot. And if you are understanding of that, you're not going to, again, attach yourself to that, okay? Because what the old self does, the ego, these voices in your head, they're going to use any piece of evidence they can to back up them existing and them having relevance in your fucking head, right? So if you then try this stuff and you fail and you react and you respond emotionally, that part of your voice, that part of your mind, sorry, that voice will come in and go, see, you're the old guy. You're still being emotional, right? But one thing that I want you to do, and this is really important, right, is to reinforce, I want you to reinforce self-forgiveness. Now, actually, I wasn't even going to write this on the board. This wasn't even part of the video, but it just came to my head, and I think I should reinforce it to you, right? Self-forgiveness is super important, right? So if you do fuck up and you do react and you do the wrong thing, right, you do not need to feel shame because of that. The quicker you can forgive yourself for not doing the right thing, the quicker you can move forward, the quicker you can become someone that's doing the right thing again. But if you hold on to that shame, if you hold on to the, oh, but I'm still reacting, and you're giving power to that ego and the old self. You're keeping them alive. You're keeping them in a position of power to control your behaviour. That behaviour that it controls, it's not going to allow you to do the right things. So as quickly as you can, get to self-forgiveness, give yourself love and think, right, I tried, but I didn't do as well as I could. Going forward, I forgive myself for not doing it. I'm going to move forward and do the right thing. Just a powerful reinforcement. I want you to soak that in. Self-forgiveness. Get to that point. Don't attach or fucking hold on to any shame at all, right? So, let's speak about the little analogy, right? So, this is what's happening a lot of the time. Let's get a different colour for you, right? Maybe a little orange as long as it's nice and vibrant, right? So, you have the voice that comes in, right? And again, essentially how these are showing up in your mind is a thought, right? To make it simple, okay? And what's happening at the moment for a lot of people is that voice is creating a reaction, right? So the voice comes in, right? Imagine the ego comes in. Oh, don't do that, it's not safe. The reaction is, so let's write it out, right? So imagine this, right? So imagine the ego's here, the ego comes in, and the ego says something like, let's just keep it simple, stay safe. And that could interpret in any way. It could be like, don't do that thing, it's not comfortable, right? The reaction would, what would the reaction then be, right? The reaction would be avoidance. Cool. So, watching a video, have you ever went to do something and avoided doing it because a voice in your head told you not to? Potentially, right? And what's happened is the egos came in to tell you to stay safe, yeah? And your reaction has been avoidance. Don't do the thing. And then what you think about this reaction, right? Once you avoid it, what is the result? What is the outcome, right? Probably nothing. Nothing. The result is nothing. You don't get a result in your life by this avoidance behaviour, this ego sabotaging you. So that's how you know straight away not to start listening to this voice, right? But again, okay, well, how do we start to, like, how do we create awareness around this, right? Watching this video. Something like this is going to start to make you clock on and reflect, right? There's a couple of little, like, one major tool that I'm going to help, like, reinforce and recommend to you to create more awareness, right? But what happens here is when we start to create awareness, we can actually, I'll put this in a slightly different colour, right? We can actually start to create this awareness when the voice comes in. And we can create this little moment here This little moment here is a wee moment of presence. Right, so that moment of presence here is created because of the awareness coming in. So the awareness comes in, right? I want you to create separation. I'd advise you to create separation between you and that voice, right? Right, what is that voice? Is that voice coming in right now? Right, okay, is it the old self? Is it the ego? Like, ask yourself that as soon as the voice comes in. Start to practice this and be aware of it. That awareness that you've gained will allow you to start creating a little moment of presence, right? A moment in the present moment, right? And this moment in the present moment is going to give you a choice, right? That choice, right? You'll then be able to then choose to take an aligned action. What is the result of this aligned action? The result is, well, a result. But so, like, again, we could just say, for short, we could say success, right? So if we can practice this, and this is how we start to become aware and master the inner voice, we need to be aware of what the different voices are that are showing up in our life. You need to reflect and have awareness around where they're specifically showing up for you. And this is why the work that I do with my clients, again, is really, really powerful, because they have me one-to-one externally question them, right? And it's my whole purpose, my whole fucking mission to work with my clients one-to-one and specifically dig into their behavior, their patterns, why they're not operating in the highest level, right? From guys starting their business to CEOs, I'm working with them to pick apart their behavior, notice these patterns, the voices. It's giving them the awareness. It's allowing them to choose aligned action, to get results, to be successful, to not be sabotaged by these voices, to not react, to sit in the observer's seat, as I keep saying, right? And hopefully, as I'm talking or as I've spoken in this video, I don't even know how that long this is. It could be half an hour, it could be 40 minutes. I don't know. I just talk, or I just keep talking, as long as it's valuable and it's giving you something to go away with, which it should be. You get to start creating this moment of presence, pausing before you react. But if you're in this constant reaction, right, what's going to happen? Like, imagine this. So the ego comes in, right, and then you react. So you actually, in here, this is actually an emotion. So once this voice comes in, you have an emotion that creates this reaction, right? So imagine you have this thought or this voice that comes in, and then you have an emotion which drives a reaction. I want you to think about it like this. Every time you do it, it's this 3-point triangle: the voice, the thought, the emotion, the action, the thought, the emotion, the action. You create these downward spirals in your life, right? So the ego comes in, avoid that thing, no results. Avoid that thing, and it gets this downward spiral that's created in your fucking life, right? But if we can start to interrupt that, we can turn this downward spiral into an upward spiral. So we can think, right, no, actually, that's a voice in my head that I don't want to listen to. Cool, what happens now? We can then feel a bit better because we're like, right, well, I don't need to listen to that. What I can do, I can listen to my higher self. That other voice in my head that tells me to do the right thing, that makes you feel good, right? That then causes you to take an action, an aligned action, yeah? Right? And then again, that aligned action will reinforce that moment of presence and the initial voice that you choose to listen to, the higher self. And that thought will then reinforce our positive feeling again, positive feeling, positive action, positive thought, feeling, action, thought, feeling, action. And then you start to then go up the way in this upward spiral. And that will take you towards the life that you want, towards success, because you're in this upward spiral of the voice, the thought being positive now because you're interrupting it, you're observing it, you're choosing who to be. That makes you feel good because you're thinking about something good. You've got a positive focus, drives the positive action, the aligned action, which gives you the result of being successful. So hopefully that makes sense, right? And we're starting a couple of little things to cover, right? And I just want to speak this into a little bit more logic so you can actually understand what the voice, where the voice comes from, right? But then just another couple of little things, right? So we spoke about repetition, okay? Spoke about repetition. And I want you to think about this, right? I want you to think about, through repetition, where you're actually going to start rewiring your brain. You're going to rewire your brain through repetition. And I want you to think about this, right? So let's think about the negative voice in your head, right? So let's think about that, right? So let's say you listen to that voice once, right? That creates a pattern, a pathway of listening to that voice. It creates a pathway in your brain of listening to the voice, acting in a certain way. It creates a loop, it creates a pathway, right? As you keep listening to this voice, as you repeatedly listen to the wrong voice, this pathway is going to get stronger, 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 right? Cool. But if you can create the awareness like we just spoke about, and you can start to listen to the positive voice, guess what? You create a new pathway. This new pathway is associated with a positive thought, a positive feeling, a positive action, right? But more importantly, we're talking about the brain. So it rewires this pathway in your brain to think about the right thing and then trigger an emotion in a positive sense. And as you start to feed that, you create a positive pathway, right? So essentially, by creating the awareness that we just have, by creating that moment of presence and the ability to change what voice we're listening to, you're going to then start to create new pathways. But as the most important thing about this is rewiring through repetition, right? So you're going to rewire through repetition. And as you start to create these strong pathways, this is one of the most important parts about rewiring it, is once you feed that positive pathway again and again and again, it gets stronger. But not only does the positive one get stronger, what starts to happen to the negative one, right? That ego, the old self, as you don't listen to it, as you don't fire the pathway, right? It's going to start to get weaker. It's going to start to atrophy and die off. And I want you to use this analogy, right? So imagine you go to, a lot of you will probably go to the gym watching this, right? Because you're higher level of awareness, higher consciousness, right? Imagine you don't go to the gym and train and you don't eat food. What happens to your muscles? They start to atrophy and they start to die off, right? They start to become weaker, not as powerful. It's the same thing that happens to the voices in your head when you stop feeding them. Once you become aware of them, that awareness is created, you can create a moment of presence, stop listening to it and reacting. You then start to make these pathways that you've got in your mind right now, these pathways in your brain that are related to that negative reaction, that negative thought process, they start to become weaker. And as you start to feed the positive one through the awareness you've gained and the ability to reinforce the positive one, that becomes stronger. So you actually start to replace the dominant voice in your head from the ego that's taking control. You start to raise your awareness, expand your consciousness, and it starts to change. The voices in your head start to become more positive, more empowering, right? Do the small voices still exist in your head? Do the negative voices still exist? Yes. But let's go back to the analogy that I used with the guy that's going to go on the stage that's done it 1,000 times and the guy that's going on for the first time. The guy that's going on for the first time has probably, well, he's never done it before, but he's probably up until that point had a lot of negative thought loops in his head to do with the going up on the stage. So the ego is really strong. It's in control. The guy that's done it 1,000 times, guess what he's done? He's fed the positive and he's not fed the negative. So although he still has a negative, that positive is a lot stronger. That's dictating his actions because he's listening to the positive voice, the higher self. You can do it. Of course you can. You know what to do. And as he started to listen to that more, build a stronger pathway, that's the dominant thought. That's the dominant pathway that runs in the dominant circuit that's running in his brain. And therefore, his dominant behavior is confidence, execution, right? Success. So this is what starts to happen. Through repetition, you start to rewire your brain. We can go into this deeper. In fact, we'll go into rewiring your brain for success. Maybe that's the next video because we can go a lot deeper in it. But I'm not necessarily going deep on that today. Talking about neuroplasticity and the ability to retrain your brain, although that is what this is, right? So let me just write that down. Since I've mentioned it, so I'm saying this video can turn into like a 2-hour long video, right? There's something called neuroplasticity. And when I'm saying these videos are pretty much freestyled, you can tell because I didn't even plan to talk about this really. Neuroplasticity, right, is the ability for your brain to form new pathways. So if you've never heard this before, your brain can actually form new pathways in your brain, in your mind, right? You can actually form new pathways. So this new one that you're creating, right, that's a new pathway that's been created through a process called neuroplasticity. Your brain's powerful as fuck. And you might not give yourself the credit of, I could actually completely change who I am through this thing called neuroplasticity because you're not aware of neuroplasticity. You're not aware that your brain can actually form new pathways. But let's not keep talking about that because I don't want to go on a tangent about neuroplasticity and rewiring the brain. We'll go into that on, as I said, probably the next video. It makes sense to do that for the next video because Again, this YouTube channel is content that should be really benefiting you. Like, I want you to really be able to learn new shit, apply it to your life, become better. And honestly, this is a big shift in the content that I'm putting out, is learning what actually works. Like things that I've applied with clients that have helped them gain awareness and gain more control. Like knowing what voice is in their head at that point, choosing not to react, position of power, choose the aligned actions is powerful, right? So let's speak about one last thing, right? Kyle, what dictates the voice that's in my head? Like, what is the thing that will dictate the voice that's in my head most of the time, right? And this is your emotional state. Right? So again, if you're anxious about something, the ego, old self, right? If you're feeling excited and you're feeling motivated and you're feeling happy and optimistic, right? That higher self is going to come in. So the emotional state that you're in is going to dictate what voices are in your head, right? Right, that's maybe there, right? But what voices in your head will be dictated by your emotional state. So ultimately, right, we can think about really taking control of the inner voice that we just spoke about, mastering our voice, but we need to also be aware of why those inner voices are in your mind at that time. It's because of the emotional state that you're in, right? So let me give you a couple of quick things that you can use to change your emotional state, right? And a couple of quick, simple things that you can actually use, right? So let's think about like generally a couple of quick ones here, because I appreciate your time and attention. And I'm not trying to rush this, right? But you can move, you can breathe, right? You can listen to music. These are just practical things. Environment, right? These things here are the quickest ways to change your physiology, your emotional state, right? Moving, so a quick little presence protocol or like reset during the day that I'll sometimes give my clients or advise my clients to do is something like press ups to failure or burpees, right? If they're feeling in a low state, emotional state, that ego is like comfortable, they're in a kind of relaxed state, or they're maybe in a demotivated emotional state, I'll get them to do like some kind of movement, right? So could be burpees, could be press ups to failure, change the state, right? I want you to think about this, and I spoke about this I think in the last video, but when you're in a kind of low emotional state, I like to think that you've got this kind of net of energy around you, right? And I want you to think about breaking the net of energy by moving. Press ups, star jumps, break that net of, probably not star jumps are gay, right? But burpees, right? Break the net of energy, get into a different physiological state, right? You can then reinforce that new state with breath work, right? The cool thing as well, once you change the state by breath work and moving, you can then direct your attention, thoughts in a different way. And the cool thing about reinforcing that is you being able to direct your attention and thoughts in the different way is you stepping into the observer, right? You then step into the observer, and guess what you do? You choose who to be, right? But if you're in a really bad emotional state, you're angry, whatever it is, do a workout, do some kind of movement, get some deep breathing going, right? That deep breathing, that movement's going to allow you to change your emotional state, probably get into a better, either more relaxed or a more positive emotional state, which is going to put you in a better position to choose what you put your attention on. It's allow you to sit into that, or put yourself in that observer seat. Because you've been raging and angry before and sad or whatever, and someone just said, think positive, and you've wanted to punch them in the fucking face, because thinking positive doesn't work when you're in that really deep emotional state. But there's some quick things that you can do to change that emotional state. But the primary part of this call was speaking about the inner voices. And hopefully this call has been valuable. I don't know how long it's going to be, etc. But if you're someone that's struggling with the emotional state, with the inner voices, with the sabotage, you feel like you want to create more awareness, being more in control, because you know there's a version of you that can get more results, that can be more in control, that can be more disciplined, click the link in the bio. Because if you click the link in the bio, you can book a call with me. And the worst case scenario is you create more clarity. The best case scenario is we lock in, we work one-to-one, and you start to see the results you know you can see. Because there's a version of you that gets all the results that you have in your imagination, but you keep sabotaging yourself with these inner voices listening to the wrong voice and not doing the right thing, and that's why you're potentially not getting the results you know you could. So, click the link, get the call booked in. I appreciate your time and attention, and until the next one, I'm enjoying these videos, and I'll be here waffling some wisdom, talking some good stuff for as long as possible. Speak to you soon.